For today's restorative pose, you will need something to support your head. I'm going to use a block and a pillow or a blanket to make a pillow. And then you'll also need a towel, a yoga mat, or another blanket that you can create a roll with. And start fairly firm. And then as you come into the position, if you need to come up and make it a little bit softer or a little bit smushier, a little bit smaller, know that you can. So in any restorative pose, we want to eliminate any tension, any gripping, any bracing, so that you can be in that position for a while with as much ease as possible. You might like to have extra bolsters, blankets, or pillows handy in case you decide you want a little bit more support. So this is the side lying resting pose. So I'm going to show you how to set it up. So you're going to create your roll, and you're going to leave a little bit space between your roll and your pillow. And we're going to start on the side of our hip. We're going to come down so that the side of our ribs is resting on this roll. And so you want to make sure that it's not up in the armpit and it's not on the lower ribs. It's kind of right in the middle. And this might be a little bit uncomfortable. So take a couple breaths and settle first and see what you notice. If you have a hard time breathing and you have a hard time settling, so if you feel like your body's kind of gripping or bracing against the roll, press yourself up, unroll it, and make it a little bit softer. Everybody's going to be a little bit different in terms of what they need here. Make sure that your pillow is high enough to fill the gap between your ear and your shoulder. So we want to maintain kind of a neutral head so it's not dropping down like this or being pushed up like this. So make any little adjustments. You might also find that it would feel better to have a folded blanket underneath your hips if the ground is hard. Or you can bring a pillow or a bolster in between your legs or your feet. So you might just need to play around a little bit with whatever you have so that you can be as comfortable as possible. And then your front arm, your top arm can either rest by your side, or you can place it on a pillow or something in front of you. So make any other little adjustments so you can be here resting comfortably. And so that bottom arm is straight out. And then just take a moment to settle. Maybe checking in with your breath. Noticing the sensations that are present. It's okay if there's a little bit of discomfort because the roll is pressing into the ribs, which can be tight. But you don't want to be so uncomfortable that you can't rest with ease. Maybe bringing your attention to the rib cage that's facing the ceiling and sensing your breath, expanding those top ribs as you breathe in, and just being gentle as you breathe out. Maybe sensing the breath moving into the spaces between the ribs. And you can let your eyes close here. Noticing if there's tension in your face. Notice if there's tension in the belly. Is there anywhere that you can consciously soften? And if there's an area where you sense tension that you can't consciously relax or let go, just notice that that's the case and don't worry. Tension, tightness, it all exists for a reason. It has its function. So practices that are restorative in nature, that support our body, show our nervous system what it means or what it feels like to be safe. And when the nervous system feels safe, then it will start to allow for opportunities for the tension and the tightness to start to release on its own. And that's why stretching isn't always very effective. It can feel good while we're doing it. You might feel good for, half an hour after. But then that tension and tightness always comes back every time, right? So we always have to try something different. And I believe that restorative yoga can be one way to help our systems feel safe so that it can start to release. I mean, there's other things obviously that need to be done to improve movement patterns and awareness and things like that. But it's a good start. It's a good place to find some stress relief and get to know ourselves maybe on a deeper level. Noticing your breath. You can continue just to rest where you are. If you'd like to explore a little bit of shoulder movement, you can bring your arm gently up into the air to a comfortable height. Keep the elbows straight if you can. And then just start to gently, very gently explore rotating your arm forward and back. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit so you can see the twisting motion. Okay, but now I'm going to go smaller. I just want to feel kind of the very beginnings of the movement. I'm not interested in going into the full range rotation. I'm just very quietly sensing the subtleness of the movement of arm bone in the shoulder socket. Sensing how all the rest of my body stays nice and quiet. And then perhaps coming back into stillness. And I'm very slightly going to take my arm towards my ear and then towards my hip. So again, I'm not going through my full range of motion, just the beginning, maybe a few centimeters or a couple inches. Just so I'm sensing that the arm bone is very slightly and gently moving in the socket. There's no pain, there's no discomfort, just a very subtle movement. And then you can go forward and back. So now the arm is coming towards the front of the body and then towards the back of the body. And again, very, very small, deliberate, easy movements. I can start to sense maybe a change in pressure through my ribs as my arm comes forward. So I'm going to pause. And I'm going to stop before my body starts to roll back. Just isolating very gently the movement of the upper arm. And then I'm going to stay in that very small range, but do little circles. So I can feel each part of the rotation. And then the other way. Super small, controlled movement. I'm not feeling any pull through my shoulder blade or my upper back. Nothing through the ribs or the chest or the top of the shoulder. Making it as small as possible. Coming back into stillness. And then slowly letting the arm come back down. toes resting. Let's take a few more breaths here. And then when you're ready, bring your hand onto your roll, press yourself up, and then you're going to turn yourself over to do the other side. I'm just going to change my position so I'm facing you. And you might find that as you set up on the other side, you might need a little bit more support for your head, or maybe the experience of the roll needs to be different. Maybe you need support on your legs, or maybe you don't. So just know that it's common, it's normal to have asymmetry side to side, which needs different amount of support. So starting on your hip, keeping a neutral spine, coming down a long line, making sure your head feels supported. Make sure the roll's not jammed up into your armpit or too far down the rib cage. Take a few breaths to settle. Do you need something under your hip or between your legs? Find a comfortable spot for your top arm. Noticing your breath. Noticing the sensations in your body. Making any adjustments that you might need to. And then beginning to send the inhale into the ribs that are facing the ceiling. Perhaps even sensing the ribs expanding forward and back. And letting them soften on the exhales. Noticing the sensation in your jaw and your mouth. Notice sensation in the abdomen, your hands, soft, gentle breath in and out through your nose. Letting your attention settle either on your breath or body sensations. Can you be curious about whatever is coming up, either physically, mentally, emotionally, without judgment, without analysis? Just being present with it. Without trying to change it. Being in a position like this where there is pressure against the rib cage can definitely bring up emotions, or emotional releases can happen. So don't try to, if something like that happens, just let it happen. If tears come, let them come. Don't try to hold it back or analyze it. Don't think too deeply about it. Just think of it as the body's way of processing unprocessed emotion or stress. We can bring the top arm up if you'd like on this side, keeping the elbow straight, fingers relaxed. And start by finding a gentle rotation. So I'll start going a little bit bigger. So it's a kind of corkscrew motion, but without really moving the top of the shoulder or the shoulder blade. You just sense the beginnings of that motion in your shoulder socket. If you feel any strain or a strong pull, any type of strong sensation, just pause and then try again a little bit smaller. We're not aiming for full range of motion here. Really kind of like the smallest, most controlled movement that you can do. I'm really noticing how the side feels a lot different. It's really interesting. Alright, and then let that rotation pause. And we'll start by taking the arm towards the head and then towards the hip. So right now I'm doing quite a big movement. It's going to get smaller. The smallest movement that I can do. While maintaining an easy breath in and out through the nose. And then towards the front of the body and towards the back. Torso stays quiet, just the arm. Relax your mouth. And then little circles without bending the elbow. And try the other direction. Go really slow. And then when you're ready, slowly bring the arm back down. Easy breath. Let's take a few more rounds of breath. Bring our hand onto the roll, press yourself up, and we're going to slide all the props out of the way so that you can come back down onto your back. And just notice what you feel as you rest here on your back. Notice how your breath feels. My breath is feeling much more free, much more easy. And my back, my spine feels like it's much flatter on the floor, like there's been a release through my ribs. I'm feeling called to move into a cat-cow. You feel free to stay on your back and rest. If you'd like to do a little bit of movement, and maybe it's a different movement that you're feeling called to do, in which case you can do that. But if you'd like to try a cat-cow along with me, you can come onto your hands and knees. And I'm going to move segment by segment, starting at my pelvis, and going up my spine, and then the head comes last, and reversing in the same way. Yeah, for me, it feels like there's a lot more freedom to move here. Your experience may not be the case, and that's okay. And this feels really nice for me, so I'm going to do a couple more. Great. I hope you enjoyed that restorative practice as much as I do. Have a great day.